Hi guys, I welcome you all to the next lecture in our anthropology series. So we were doing human growth and development, and we had talked about the prenatal phase. In postnatal we had done the infancy, we had done the childhood, and today we are going to start with puberty and adolescence, right? So this is one of the, I would say, the most important stages of development, because as in when we start to read more about it, you will understand why I'm saying this. So adolescent period, you can say it starts from your generally you can say 11 12 to your 18 years, right? So this is the time of your adolescence mostly, right? Now during your teens, adolescent experience changes in their physical development at a rate of speed unparalleled since infancy. So now what we were talking, there were three phases. Let me just write it again. There was a prenatal phase, then in postnatal we had studied postnatal mein there was infancy and childhood. Okay, so and prenatal phase में growth काफ़ी fast, there was fast growth, because we saw how from a single cell, ठीक है, there was a complex human being that was getting created. In infancy and childhood, the rate of growth had slowed down, so it was not at par with the kind of growth at prenatal phase. But even then in the childhood, in you can say in around 6 to 8 years, 9 years, there was a growth spurt, right? So we call it childhood growth spurt, where thoda sa acceleration in growth and development had happened. But now when we study the third one, that is your adolescent period, adolescence, यहाँ पे जो growth spurt होता है, that is called the adolescent growth spurt, and the kind of development and growth that is that you see in this adolescence period is unparalleled. That means बहुत ज़्यादा, a lot of growth and development of a human being happens in this time. So this is you can say adolescence period is marked by the beginning of puberty, or a process which you call the onset of sexual maturity in a person, ठीक है, when the person is able to reproduce. So it is marked by that. So beginning is onset of puberty, which is often defined as physical transformation of a child into an adult. So from a child you now so it's like a rites de passage. So आपका एक rites de passage है. That means अभी आप कुछ देखो, राइट्स डी पैसेज तो सेरेमनी वगैरह होती है, राइट, बट हम इसको जस्ट टू अंडरस्टैंड कि क्या हो रहा है, बिकॉज इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रिमार्केबल शिफ्ट इन योर लाइफ. सो इट हैज़ अ रिमार्केबल shift or transition from a child into an adult, and a myriad of biological changes occur during this time of puberty or sexual maturation. That is one. Then there is increase in height and weight, ठीक है, completion of skeletal growth, and then increase in skeletal mass and changes in body composition. So it is not only marked by sexual maturity or reproductive maturity, also your skeletal growth completes, ठीक है, there is marked increase in skeletal mass, and height and weight also increases. So you become the person that you will remain throughout your, you can say throughout your adult life, ठीक है ना. So this is one thing. Then the succession of these events during puberty is consistent among adolescents. However, there may be a great deal of deviation in the age of onset, duration and tempo of these events. Now I told you again and again, we have been talking about this, that race, our genetics, ठीक है, geography, socio-economic background, these are all certain factors that will determine your growth and development prospects in each and every phase, so they are not going to be different. Okay, so ये सब determine करेंगे ही करेंगे in each phase of your life. So that is why even though when we are generalizing कि this is the time period when these changes happen, but sometimes it starts late in some people and it starts early among some people, right? So this is because of these determinants, right? For example, if one girl is getting her first menses at the age of 10, or and one girl is getting it at the age of 14, so there is a clear cut deviation. But now why is this deviation? It could be because of these determinants, right? So you understand this. Okay, for this reason the adolescents of the same chronological age can vary greatly in physical appearance. ठीक है ना? So obviously when you used to be in your school, when you used to be in your school time, 6th grade, 7th grade, you would see that many of the boys and girls who were shorter in height than you, right? When you came in your 10th standard or 11th standard, they had surpassed your height, or they were taller than you, or maybe you were shorter than somebody and you surpassed their height. That is because every person, though in the same bracket, but has their own onset of tempo of getting that spurt, that growth spurt, right? So growth spurt थोड़ा थोड़ा सा determine करता है on various factors, and it can have deviation from the average levels. Okay, so this is how the adolescent age looks like. It is very stress free, and then it is very light. You used to go to school, but then there is a adolescent stress also that builds in this time, and that is because for example, that is because of the changing body's hormones, ठीक है, that are triggered by physiological signals. ठीक है ना? जैसे for example in girls, their ovaries start to grow, ठीक है, and the female hormone estrogen, ठीक है. In boys similarly there is increased manufacturing of androgen, ठीक है, and then testosterone. So these things are known as the sex hormones, and also these bring out changes. For example, more testosterone brings you can say aggression, ठीक है, and depression. So that is why एक adolescent stress होता है, एक adolescent stress होता है, because their body is changing. They start to feel weird about themselves. जैसे for example the beard comes, right? Among boys the beard comes, but it is not fully grown also like a adult, and it is not like something कि वो clean shave भी नहीं लगते. It looks very odd on the face. Similarly, there is deepening of voice that happens among boys, and sometimes that voice becomes very, in the transition phase, becomes very weird, right? So that is something which brings awkwardness, depression among the children. So these are the changes that you can see happening. ठीक है? Okay. So the maturation is signaled by a rapid acceleration in the growth velocity of virtually all skeletal tissues. जैसे हमने बात करी कि the height, the weight, the skeletal growth, all these things are going to get completed, and it will give you the final shape that you're going to have for the rest of your life. So all those things complete. The boys gain their adolescent growth spurt on an average between 12 and a half to 15 and a half. ठीक है? This time for girls is 2 years earlier. So it is around 11 to 12.5, right? So girls में that onset of puberty starts a bit earlier than the boys. So though the females are taller than their male counterparts up to 11 years, the adolescent boys are typically taller than the boys. This is my own experience, guys, and I have seen that the boys that used to be shorter in height than me, na, they took that growth spurt started to happen in 9th standard, 10th standard, ठीक है, and they became taller than me. in after their adolescent growth spurt. So इसके लिए इसमें you should remember that adolescent growth spurt for girls start 2 years earlier than boys. Other than that you can remember the points like अगर हम adolescent boys की बात करें, okay, let's make a heading, it's adolescent boys, and then we'll do the adolescent girls also. So in this time shoulders start to become wide, that's first thing. ठीक है, then legs become longer than the trunk. So now legs, arms become longer than the trunk area. ठीक है, trunk area is your abdomen and chest, that region. ठीक है, so that happens. Then there is layers of fat under the skin giving you more round, that used to give you a more rounded shape, now that becomes a little slender. So आप थोड़ा slender हो जाते हो. Then we write adolescent girls also here. Girls में there is fat deposition. That fat deposition starts to happen in the hip region. So hip region में there is fat deposition. ठीक है. Then this then your primary sexual characteristics starts to grow. जैसे कि इसमें आ जाएंगे your ovaries, ठीक है, your uterus, ठीक है. These are the organs जो start हो जाते हैं mature होना, ठीक है, they start to mature, ठीक है. Similarly in boys, ठीक है, the testes, the gonads, ठीक है, all of these start to become a lot. Then there is ejaculation of semen, ठीक है. All these things are shows maturity in your primary sexual characteristics. Apart from that you can remember your hormones also start to generate, estrogen in this case, right, androgen in that case. So I think यहाँ पे कोई problem नहीं है. And then development of breasts in girls. So development of breasts in girls, in the case of girls, ठीक है. And then your all of that adolescent growth period you can just write. It is in case of boys it is around 12 and a half to 15 and a half. For girls it is around 11 and a half to 13 लगा सकते हो आप, ठीक है. So this is something, and I think these many points are good. And then you can write about the adolescent stress for both of them. Adolescent stress, because जैसे your beard starts to grow, so you can write that also. Beard grow करती है, ठीक है, voice deepen हो जाती है for boys, ठीक है. These bring certain then aggression आ जाता है, ठीक है. So all of this becomes a little odd for the teenager groups, ठीक है. So this you can just write. And let's now go back and look at the okay. So now adolescent in human life cycle is characterized by pubertal growth spurt in height and weight, and along with other primary secondary sexual characters, ठीक है. Secondary, चलो let me just tell you primary and secondary sexual characters, so you can just remember it like that also. Primary and secondary, ठीक है. I'll just keep on saying it, you just try to understand. So organs that are necessary for reproduction, ठीक है, they are the primary characters. जो necessary हैं, okay, they are necessary for reproduction. First let us do this only. For reproduction, for example, the uterus, the ovary, the vagina in girls. In boys it is the penis, the seminal vesicles, the testis, all those, ठीक है. These are the primary sexual sex characters, ठीक है. And the sign of maturity in girls is, in girls the maturity का sign is menstruation or your puberty. And then in the boys it is the ejaculation of semen, right. So that will be in the boys. Now you have to remember these are going to be full-fledged chapters in the next lecture. I mean in the next chapter itself they are going to be full-fledged topics. So that is why I am going very slowly into this. We are going to cover it in the next chapters also. Okay. Similarly, when we will do the senescence, in the next chapter we have to do aging and senescence theories. So that is why I will just briefly cover it here, because anyways हमको इसको next chapter में पढ़ना है. Then secondary sexual characters are those who are not directly involved in reproduction, but more or less they are also important. So in this you can say in girls it is the breasts. ठीक है, गर्ल्स के लिए ऐसे लिख देती हूँ, गर्ल्स या फीमेल्स यू कैन से इट्स द ब्रेस्ट. ठीक है, फॉर ऐसे बॉयज़ कर देते हैं. बॉयज़ के लिए इट इज़ द ब्रॉड शोल्डर्स. देन वी हैव देयर वॉइस. ठीक है, देन वी हैव प्यूबिक हेयर फॉर बोथ ऑफ देम, प्यूबिक हेयर. ठीक है, देन द निपल्स enlarge in the girls, enlarge. ठीक है, then these are the armpit hair, you can say. These are all the secondary sexual characters which are not primarily involved in the sexual reproduction part. ठीक है, so I hope there is no doubt about this. And now let's see what we are reading here. So completion of permanent teeth आ जाते हैं. That means now we talked about at the age of 10 the mouth is full, about 20 teeth are there in the mouth. So now these the further teeth जो होते हैं ना, permanent teeth, they come except the third molar, and then your mouth is full. ठीक है, then development of secondary sexual traits, we have talked about that. You can just see it from here, the secondary sexual traits, these are the ones. ठीक है, we have talked about it, including the sex specific alteration to fat and muscle distribution. हमने बोला ना fat deposition होता है in girls in the hip region, वो भी आ गया. Then psychological and behavioral changes, I talked about adolescent stress, that is what it is. ठीक है, so I hope there is no doubt in this topic. And guys, we can start with the adulthood. Okay, let's just do adulthood also. So in adulthood, just as it now the next is adulthood. So now you have completed your teens and you have entered a new matured life, which you can say it would be some period from 20 years to, you can say, 60 years, 65 years, right? That's your adulthood. आज के time पे तो you can just call it more than 60 also. You can call it 65, you can call it 70, till the time you are healthy, right? So that healthy period, that has increased now, because पुराने time पे when there were no sophisticated medical sciences, ठीक है ना, उसकी वजह से life expectancy was low. But today, because of the life expectancy is increasing, that adulthood is getting increased, and the period of aging and senescence is getting delayed, right? So you can just remember this. But you can also divide this adulthood into you can say 2 categories, right? And 3 categories basically. It could be your young adulthood, then you could have your middle adulthood, and then you could have your late adulthood. ठीक है, तो young baby you can say like 20 to your 30 years, right? 30, 40, like that. ठीक है, so now let's just start with it. Just as it is difficult to determine precisely when adolescence begins, because as we have talked about, for somebody it might start at 11, for somebody it might start at 12, for somebody it might start at 14, because kahin bachche they are late starters also, right? So it could differ from person to person. Similarly, so is the adulthood. Determining exactly when adulthood commences proves very, very difficult. So adulthood is for most people the time of peak physical capacity. That means at this time your body has reached maximum of your peak, the maximum of your physical capacity. The body reaches full height by the late teens, and physical strength increases into the late 20s and early 30s. That means this is the time that where you have the maximum strength, ठीक है, maximum physical capacity, ठीक है. So the attainment of adult stature and sexual maturation are the indications of transition from adolescence to adulthood. What was the indication of adolescence? It was the puberty and the growth spurt. Here the attainment of sexual maturation which had started itself in the adolescent period, the sexual that reproductive thing had started in the adolescent period, but now it has become full at its peak capacity. So it has come on its peak capacity and your body has hit that optimum strength also. So height stops as the long bones of the body like femur lose their ability to increase in length. तो आपकी height वगैरह it stopped to grow now, because till your adolescent period you were growing, right? So you can just see this is a comparison that I've made. So I'll just talk about the young adulthood, which is mostly 20 to 40 years you can say, and your middle is 40 to 65 you can say, and 40 to 50 and late, middle and late you can just combine it also. So young adulthood क्या होता है? This time people make decisions that will affect the rest of their life. So there are decisions regarding your what are you going to do in your life, who are you going to marry with, where are you going to stay. So now you have become from a dependent person to an independent entity. The strength, the energy, the endurance is at its peak. Most of your body functions attain full development till your 20 years of age, ठीक है. So this gradually starts to decline in your middle and late adulthood, which is around 50 to 55 years, ठीक है. So this time you have stable height from, you can say, from 25 years to 40 years you have stable height, and then it begins to decline. We'll see in aging in senescence why it starts to decline, ठीक है. Senses are at the sharpest, vision is the keenest, ठीक है, and it starts to decline after 40 years of age, ठीक है. So I hope there is no doubt about this. And guys, what we'll do is now the middle and late we'll do tomorrow. And if you guys like the lecture, please like, share and subscribe. Any suggestions, please post in the comment section below. Thank you so much.